Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and today we're back with another Honkai Star Rail video, and we're going to be talking about the changes in 1.1. Effect resistance of enemy targets above level 50 have all been adjusted to increase at a lower rate. What this basically means is if you had to use maybe an X amount of effect hit rate to land your debuffs reliably, now you definitely need a lot less than that as well, making it much more better for especially characters that want to scale into other stats as well, so you don't have to min-max that amount of effect hit rate stat, especially if you don't get additional bonuses from that effect hit rate as well. Other than that, removing wind shear and as well as shock resistance from specific monsters. So let's talk about it in this video. I want to talk about who actually really benefits from these changes the most, and I think the first category that intuitively all of us kind of guess is definitely the DPS debuffers. Hoyoverse are definitely smart by putting this change in Silverwolf's first banner as well. They could have left it like later on to adjust it, but they decided to put it now, maybe to help her sell better as well. Characters that land a lot of debuffs generally will benefit from this a bit more, but out of all of the debuff lenders, I think the ones that will benefit the most are the ones that don't really care too much about building like 100%, 200% effect hit rate. In this sense, that's why I put a bit of a disclaimer here, is a DPS debuffers. For example, if you are just a debuffer and you don't care too much about damage, you wouldn't mind building like 200% effect hit rate in the first place. But the question becomes the opportunity cost. If you build too much into effect hit rate, you lose out on like other stats, for example restoration, speed, or damaging stats like crit rate, crit damage, attack, and so on and so forth. So that's why DPS debuffers are the specific ones. Specifically for Silverwolf, I think what benefits her the most other than her overall kit already is they definitely do want to sell a bit more for this E2 zombie network here. And the reason for that is when she reduces an enemy resistance by a further 20%, this is immediately compounded. The fact that their base effect res is lowered, so when they come in and they have even more lower, it just really like tremendous tons of value. They really want to sell this to whales as well, the E2 for Silverwolf. So that's like something to consider. Of course, she's not the only one. There's definitely like some other categories too that we will talk about in a bit. But let's talk about some of the other DPS debuffers too. We have Sampo. I think Sampo benefits as well. He's also a damage dealing nihility character. Doesn't want to build too much in terms of effect hit rate. And has wind shear, which got removed from some of the mobs as well. Wind shear resistance. Kafka, a future character that's coming out, definitely benefits from this as well. A DPS debuffer in general. And of course, Welt as well as Pella are both DPS. They can do quite a bit of damage, so I will consider them as like a sub DPS, AoE DPS kind of role. Dealing good amounts of damage and also inflicting quite a lot of debuffs on the enemy targets as well. But these are not the only characters in this category. I mean, nihility characters is kinda intuitive that most people put them here. I want to name two other ones to value add to this conversation. I think the two other ones that will benefit are characters like Serval and as well as Danheng. And the reason for that is Serval, some of the enemies got removed shock resistance, but also she applies a shock debuff on enemies targets, and Danheng has slow in his kit. And these two characters generally don't want to build into effect hit rate. They want to be building like more for damage stats, as they are like erudition classes and hunt classes respectively. So effect hit rate is like kinda not really beneficial stat for them in totality, and that is why this change definitely benefits both of them quite significantly as well. And the second category I want to talk about right now is the freeze category. Freeze category is very interesting to DPS debuffers because currently in the game we have I think about, let's just say we have these three characters right now, which freeze in their kit quite reliably as well. Herta doesn't really freeze unless you break the enemy, so I won't put her in the list. But these three characters don't want to build too much effect hit rate as well. For example, Japat as well as March 7, although they do see some effect hit rate in their kit, they could build a little bit, but they do like take away from, for example, March 7 can be a bit more of a damaging unit, can be a bit more tanky shielder. Same for Japat, he could use the shield a little bit more. He could also build into maybe a bit more attack or speed stats, so he can do a bit more damage on the side as well. And this change definitely benefits the freeze category quite significantly, because if enemies are not able to resist freeze as often, you generally need to build a much less amount of effect hit rate, which suits their nature of their kit very well, because they don't really want to like min-max effect hit rate in their kit, just a little little bit of it and the rest goes into other stat that they need. Yanqing is also another character that benefits significantly from this change because he has freeze in his kit, but being like a DPS character that just wants to go all out crit damage, you want to go for that hyper carry Yanqing in terms of a lot of stats in offensive stats, and effect hit rate he doesn't really scale with it in terms of damage unless of course like you run the Pan-Galactic Commercial Enterprise Light Cone set, or Relic set. Other than that, he doesn't really benefit too much. Out of all three, if you ask me, I think the one that benefits the most is Japat, as if he wasn't already strong enough. This character does everything in 1.0. He shields your whole team with a thick, chunky shield. He does decent amount of damage, generates skill points for the team, and now his skill ability also freezes the enemy targets, which means his E1 is not as vital as before, which basically just like increases the amount of base chance of the freezing of the enemy as well. So super ton of value, I think. Very solid changes to the freeze. And the last category I want to talk about is the effect hit rate buffers. For example, Silver Wolf will fall somewhere in between the DPS debuffers and effect hit rate buffers category, because by reducing the enemy's resistance, you are kind of supporting your entire team by effectively increasing their ability to land debuffs. And this is tons of value because your rest of your main DPS characters or characters that don't even want to touch that stat at all, effect hit rate stat, now are able to land their debuffs much better. And I think these category of characters would definitely see the most buff and utility in terms of going forward from 1.1 onwards and change. But I think out of all the characters right now, like if I were to say the best one of all, and she's already in the category here, and that character will be Pella. I think this change benefits Pella the most out of every single character, because for those of you who don't know, this is a major trait that Pella has. When she's on the battlefield, all allies effect hit rate increases by 10%. It's not gated by any eidolons or anything, it's a major trace, and having this 10% increase in effect hit rate means that characters that didn't really want to build too much in effect hit rate in the first place now might not even have to build it. For example, if you're up against certain enemies in the Memory of Chaos. She also has freeze, able to land it better, and now she doesn't have to build super into effect hit rate as compared to before, meaning that she can also build more into like a AoE DPS role. Really, I think this change really benefits Pella the most out of all the characters in the game. But those are not the only changes for 1.1. We will also be seeing a bit of a change in the memory turbulence. This memory turbulence is not permanent, which is why I left it towards the end of the video. There are 3 different parts, unlike 1.0, which was just one Hun and Erudition getting a lot of buffs, always speed up their turns. That's going away. They no longer will get that buff in the Memory of Chaos. Instead, we will have like 3 different sections in terms of the date range. I will do a more in-depth video each, but basically what this means is your first and second part is likely going to favor quite a lot in terms of your debuffers, because if you debuff, you for example get damage down in the first section. The second part of the turbulence rotation, you have defense break on enemies, means your characters do more damage. The last part is of course together with low task timing, where you get an attack buff when your characters are all above a certain amount of HP as well. We'll do this in depth in terms of like meta changes as we do every patch later on. And if you found this video helpful in terms of going into a deep dive on all these characters, you might like these 2 other videos right here as well. And thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.